allow us to use the sanctuary, of course, because of the wonderful cause that we're all here for, which is to raise awareness about sex trafficking occurring in our community. It's occurring across the world, but we need to, first and foremost, take care of our community. And if everyone does the same thing, takes care of their community, then we can just wipe this evil straight out of our country. I'd like to say that 2 years ago, I felt it in my soul that we were in a spiritual war. And that is exactly what we are in, a spiritual war. So my focus is on God. It's looking at his face and praying to him every day. Because no matter what it is that I do, it's all with him in mind. He's doing this. This is not me. I'm simply a vessel. We are all vessels. And I want to thank and applaud each and every one of you for taking the time to be here today. Before we move ahead with our presentation, I would like to let you know about something very positive that our group is doing, our group, because we've grown in numbers. Now, we were originally meeting on Wednesdays at the Fire Commissioner Chambers, and we outgrew that space. That space seats 40 plus persons. Last meeting, we had every seat taken, plus standing in the back, a couple of people. When we moved to the sanctuary, the only day available was Tuesdays, and there are very many meetings. So to those of you who are here for the first time, don't be dismayed by the empty seats. Just know that there are other meetings going on, and people are prioritizing. Yes, I'm a patriot, but first and foremost, I'm God-fearing. And nothing is more important to me than this topic. Nothing. I wake up and I go to sleep every night thinking about children, especially. Not that children are the only ones trafficked, but those are the ones that I feel deep down in my heart. And God has impressioned this on me, and I intend to use my voice to bring awareness to the community, no matter how many demons on next door have come out against me. So I'd like to say that because we've grown in numbers, and because my husband and I have made it a point to go to as many events as we can and speak, our group is being recognized. We are getting the leverage that we intended to get to make our voice be the voice that's heard by our local elected officials. My husband and I met with Sheriff Rambosk, and we had a 2-hour plus meeting with him. And if you all recall, our group first started regarding the illicit massage parlors, the 46 massage parlors that I was able to find on one website advertising openly in our community, in our beautiful Collier County. No, that can't happen here. It's happening here. And it affects us all. So we both sat down with Sheriff Rambosk and one of his attorneys. He asked us, I promise you this, that our group will be involved every step of the way. In addition to that, I've had the wonderful opportunity to reach out and have them respond, the founder of Path2Freedom, which is an amazing, amazing organization. They serve the needs of child survivors of sex trafficking, which again is a major, major thought and feeling in my heart. I'd like to let you know the founder is Anna Stevenson. She has been a resident of Naples since 1962, and after spending almost a decade in the banking world, she married her soulmate, John, of 32 years. Anna has set out to address a need in the communities she loves. After meeting the person that would change her entire view on the issue of human trafficking, Anna and John founded Path2Freedom in April of 2015. We also have here Barb Bollinger. She is the Director of Development for Path2Freedom. She started in June 2020 as a volunteer mentor and teacher's assistant at Path2Freedom's Safe Home, and became the Director of Development in November of 2020. She is a Syracuse University communications undergraduate and earned her MBA from the Ohio State University. Barb comes with 28 years of prior corporate experience in marketing, operations, sales, and finance in Ohio and Florida. But most importantly, she has a personal passion for Christ and the issue of human trafficking. I'd like to introduce to you Anna Stevenson.
Thank you so much. It is truly an honor to be here with you tonight. And when I spoke with Lisa just recently on the phone and got to hear her heart, I felt such a connection with that moment. And I just want to say that, you know what? Buckle up, because God's going to take you on the ride of your life. I look at you now and I see myself back when I first started. And He's going to open doors that you thought would never be possible. And through your obedience, you watch and see what God's going to do. He's going to continue to grow this ministry. And He's so well pleased with you. Well pleased with you. You know what? Human trafficking is one of the fastest growing crimes in the world, and one of the most heinous crimes against God's people. Psalm 139 tells us that we're fearfully and wonderfully made, created in the image of God. Human trafficking is one of the greatest assaults against God's children. And because we are His image bearers, is an assault against God Himself. Did you know that human trafficking is a sophisticated enterprise bringing in $150 billion a year? That's mind-boggling. Did you know that one trafficker with one girl can make up to $400,000 a year? Did you know the FDLE and the local law enforcement halted the largest human trafficking ring here in Southwest Florida in 2015? And did you know that they were operating out of Naples, Bonita Springs, Fort Myers, Cape Coral, and LaBelle? Did you know that there were 93 cases right here in Collier County alone of human trafficking in a 4-year span? Did you know that there were 462 identified victims in the state of Florida, and these are minor female victims, and only 51 beds to house and restore these girls? Did you know that there was a 6-year-old girl that was rescued right here in Collier County that had been trafficked by the mother since the age of 3? Did you know that girls are being recruited in the high schools and malls here in Southwest Florida? Did you know that Path2Freedom receives 12 referrals every single week, and we have to turn most of them down because of lack of beds? And did you know that Path2Freedom, all the girls that are referred to us for services, are from Florida? They're U.S. born. These are our girls. Did you know that human trafficking victims can be raped up to 52 times in one night? And that's where it all began for me. Does she have a PowerPoint up there? You can go to the, sorry about that, go to the fourth slide. So I was invited on January 30th of 2015 to a place just north of here to listen to a girl share her story for the very first time. Her 2.5-year nightmare of being trafficked. Brittany stood at the front of the room with tears streaming down her cheeks. Her head slowly dropped toward the ground in such shame. While there was a profound look of fear and pain on her face, she spoke with remarkable courage as she began to recount her story that evening. She was deceived by a family member. Her own mother sold her to her cousin here in Orlando. A few months after her nightmare began, she was impregnated by her trafficker and was forced on the streets until she was 6 months pregnant. She finally ended up having the child, and after days of giving birth, she was back on the streets again. She begged God to end her life. The pain and suffering became no longer bearable. It was so unbearable that she left her own child with the trafficker. I have 4 daughters of my own, and I can't imagine leaving my child knowing what could happen to that child had I left them with him. Just goes to show the desperation of this woman and how bad she wanted to get away from there. She ran away to Orlando, or from Orlando down here to Southwest Florida, and came in contact with a woman named Dr. Yaro Garcia. She is the director for the mental health at FGCU. She also owns her own practice and provides counseling for victims of human trafficking. Dr. Yaro Garcia was very instrumental in her recovery, and I'm very pleased to say that Path2Freedom also played a role in that time. She has since been reunited with her child and doing extremely well. Brittany now travels the country to raise awareness and share her testimony to churches and legislation to try to change laws. I was in awe by her story. She had amazing, amazing courage. Imagine for a moment one of these victims being your daughter, your granddaughter, your niece, your son, your grandson, because boys are affected as well. I can't imagine it. Brittany's story moved me so profoundly that it drove me to start Path2Freedom. And Path2Freedom was established in April of 2015. 2015, I became a human trafficking advocate for the state of Florida. I assisted in starting an on-call hotline for survivors of human trafficking. We helped 560 individuals through the local human trafficking hotline, provided hundreds of backpacks with supplies and clothes for these precious girls, and provided emergency transportation to deposition appointments, to court cases, and even hospital visits. And it was our duty to try to find placements for these girls. It was then that I discovered there weren't enough houses in the state of Florida. In 2018, I found the most amazing property in Southwest Florida. We don't disclose the place for the safety of our girls. I had gone to the board and I said, there's a need for this, would you allow me to buy this home? They gave me the approval. We put an offer on this house with a 45-day contingency that if we didn't raise the down payment, we would be able to back out. Well, God showed up in a big way. We raised $150,000 in 30 days, and we were able to purchase the home. In August of 2018, we were in the middle of a massive Magnolia House renovation. The renovation cost us about $400,000, and we as an organization only paid $30,000 of that. Everything was donated. A woman in Port Royal donated all her furniture for the house. Hurricane-resistant windows, horses for equine therapy. I mean, it's amazing. When you step out in God's call, He provides. He provides. I would like to take a moment to show you a 2.5-minute video of the inside of the safe house. You can play the video now, please. Thank you.
Please join us for a tour of today's Magnolia House. As you arrive on property and enter the house from the front lanai, you cannot help but feel a sense of peace and tranquility. For our residents, this will be both welcoming and entirely different from the fear, stress, and pain from where they've come. The open plan style of the kitchen, living room, and dining area promotes family togetherness and connectedness. The adjacent library provides a peaceful place for reading and reflection. Notice the abundance of natural light that floods every room as we make our way next to the house mentor's wing. Our program design calls for 2 house mentor couples. Our full-time mentors will care for the residents 5 days per week, 24/7. Our second couple will be weekend relief. This care approach has been proven effective both in the quality of program services provided and to ensure time away for both couples who can be a challenging work environment. The first room on the right is the weekend relief quarters. Across the hall is a beautifully remodeled bathroom and a private sitting lounge. Next is the master bedroom suite, sitting area, and bath where the full-time house mentors will stay. As we make our way to the resident room side of the house, we first encounter the food pantry, already stocked with hundreds of donated perishable items. The first of 5 resident bedrooms continues our path through Magnolia. Each room is beautifully furnished as safe, quiet, and comfortable. This is their space, free from fear, a place where they can rest and relax and heal, a place where they can begin to leave their past behind them and dream of a wonderful future. It is here where relationships will be nurtured and genuine love will be expressed and experienced. Next, there are many opportunities for family-style fun. The large game room will be a popular meeting place for ping pong matches, board games, holiday decorations, planning, and crafts. Joy and laughter for all will be plentiful. The pool makes for more family fun and cookouts and outdoor activities. This space also serves perfectly for a variety of therapies, including aqua and recreation.
The Magnolia House, from its origin as an orphanage, is now a designated place to heal. This beautiful property has been bathed in prayer for decades. Many have said that they feel the presence of God when they visit this special place. Path2Freedom has answered the call to provide hope and healing for those leaving the darkness and entering His marvelous light. While the world was shutting down during COVID, Magnolia doors were being opened. We hired 2 house mentor parents, and the reason why we chose to do house parents, husband and wife, is because these girls, most of them never came from whole families. It was important for them to see the family structure. We felt that that was what God wanted us to do. At the time, it was quite challenging. As you saw, the house was not completed there. It took us about 2 years to renovate that place, and the community rallied around us. As a matter of fact, we live in a neighborhood, and people around us are supporting us in the neighborhood, which is another miracle. Because when you hear about human trafficking in your neighborhood, a lot of people don't want to have that there, but they've been just remarkable. At Path2Freedom, we dare to be different. Our family-style residential programs are trauma-informed, long-term, evidence-based, and therapeutic. As a family-first model, we value the healing that comes from finding that one place in a healthy, loving family. That's why Path2Freedom staff Magnolia House with a full-time house parents, supporting staff, and volunteers. We need lots of volunteers and lots of drivers as well. These girls, they're getting older now, and they're doing extracurricular activities, and it takes a lot, it takes a village. Residents begin to explore their unique gifts and bonding over like interests by participating in recreational therapies. One of our primary services is equine therapy, which is also known to decrease post-traumatic stress disorder. Through this program, the residents have found belonging in equine and in the purpose of the ability to care for the horses. These experiences provide peace and from the effects of trauma. Next slide. Those we serve often lack the ability to thrive in a traditional homeschool setting. Because we realize the power of individualized attention, setting professional goals, and living a life purpose, we open the Magnolia House on property. A lot of these girls are being recruited in the middle school and high school, and we thought it was important in order to keep them safe to create a place for them to have their education on property. Residents receive education tailored to their individual academic needs and professional goals. In addition to traditional academic classes, our residents participate in occupation readiness and receive financial literacy training. We're in the process of actually completing the essential steps for effective program replication. We want to open more safe houses, not only take it in the state of Florida, but go nationally as well. Next slide. And the most significant news is to fill a mission by adding a transitional home on the existing property for long-lasting recovery. The transition provides a safe place for the Magnolia House graduates from 18 to 22 to become self-sufficient through learning life skills, job skills, financial responsibilities, and gaining education to build a career. Human trafficking survivors often do not have the background to allow them to cultivate a life skill before the age of 18, such as getting a driver's license or even understanding self-sufficiency. I mean, some of these girls don't even know how to mop the floor or wash their clothes. Relying on government assistance and returning to the homeless runaway lifestyle is common in adult survivors. The lifestyle leaves them highly vulnerable to traffickers once again. At Path2Freedom, each survivor's transition program is individualized to their unique needs and personal goals. Continuing the Path2Freedom journey into adulthood ensures long-term impact, freeing residents from the effect of trauma for a lifetime. We believe that every rescued survivor like Brittany deserves the opportunity that brings a promise-filled future. Next slide. The impact by the outpouring of our church supporters and partners and community support is most evident in the lives of those we serve at Magnolia. Here are two girls that I would like to share a portion of their story and progress. Both girls, we have changed their names to protect their identity. The first girl is Sam. She was our second resident that came to Magnolia. She had been in foster care all her life. As a matter of fact, she was in 19 placements before she came to us. This beautiful child was cast aside by her family and never ever met her father. She struggled to stay in our placement, but finally came to a place where she quickly knew that we did not operate as a safe house, that we operate as a safe home with abundance of forgiveness, love, and acceptance. All of our residents have surpassed their longest length of stay from most of their previous placements. As a matter of fact, most of them run within the first 48 hours. In the 10 girls that we have serviced, we've had one girl leave after 2.5 years of being there. We're in the process of actually bringing her back. She's ready to come back. She realized that life is not all that she thought it was going to be. So we're very happy to get her back. While Emily was resisting the rules and working through much anger, she had so much anger, she eventually knew that she had found her forever family. During one of her court cases, she asked the judge if she could make Magnolia her permanent home. And of course, he honored that request. And she's been with us since she was 15 years old. One of her favorite memories was during Christmas at Magnolia. She said, I had never experienced a family nor ever had a dad. And during my first Christmas, Mom and Dad, the house mentors, came to my room Christmas morning with matching pajamas like my sister's with hot chocolate. I wish she could stand up here and say it here in front of you guys. She said, I needed a moment for myself because I was so touched. I never had anything like this or ever experienced the love of a father. Emily will graduate this summer from the Magnolia School program, and she will be attending high school summer forensic camp at the National Leadership Conference in Washington, D.C. this July. Her sights are set on the military and law enforcement. She wants to help kids like herself. Our full-time school teacher has tailored her education and extracurriculars to support her plan. And we have no doubt that wherever Emily goes, she's going to be successful. She's pretty amazing. Dina was our 9th resident. She was 13 years old when she came to us. And she was, the most significant challenge is that she was deaf. This child was trafficked by a 40-year-old man and was deaf. It took a few months for her to gain our trust. Today, she is part of Magnolia family. Dina was reading at a 1st and 2nd grade level when she arrived to us. She could write short sentences 10 months ago, and we quickly learned to incorporate American Sign Language into our on-site school at Magnolia House Family. Sorry, I forget to tell her to skip the PowerPoint. By adding ASL interpreter and specialized education curriculum, communication has improved dramatically at our safe house. Dina can now write small paragraphs, learn compound sentences, understand subject-verb agreements, and correct tenses. She has improved by several grades in less than a year. She also just finished her driver's ed education classes. She was very proud of that. I actually let her drive my car one day, and oh my gosh, she's a little speedy little angel. Whoa, she was taking those corners. I was like, and trying to tell her while she couldn't hear me. Like, she's precious. I wish you could meet them all. Dina also received a puppy for Christmas. She wanted a dog for Christmas. We bought her a Portuguese water dog. These dogs are known to become deaf service dogs and highly intelligent with lots of energy to keep Dina busy. They bonded instantly. As a matter of fact, when I go out there on Wednesdays, I have a team meeting, and I see her walking back from the school with her dog, and she's rolling on the floor on the grass with the dog, just having a blast. It's just precious. But when Dina arrived at Magnolia House, she thought that she'd be working in construction due to her disability. And she has recently learned that she can go to college and become her dream to become a veterinarian. And we're in the process of making that happen for her. Her work ethic is remarkable. You can go to the next slide. Some of you may or may not know, but our ultimate plan is to build an 80-acre campus. This campus can actually provide housing for 40 girls on each campus. And we have set out since the very beginning. Actually, we started out thinking that we were going to build this first, but God had a different plan. He took us a different route, because I know that if we would have built that, we would have failed miserably. And we needed to get the program established, which we have done. And God always knows best. You can go to the next slide. Tonight is a call to action. I invite you to join us to ignite change that will provide across lives and lifetimes and truly impact the futures of those who we serve. How can you help? I'm glad you asked. Participate to Wear Blue on Wear Blue Day, which is Human Trafficking Awareness Day, which is January 11th, every single year. If you see something, say something. Call your local law enforcement or call the National Human Trafficking Hotline. A lot of times, women go to these, get her nails done. If you see a girl in there that doesn't fit the mark, she's got braided hair, she's got beautiful nails, she's been picked up by an older man, that right there is a clue that she's probably being trafficked. So keep your eyes open. There's actually a trafficker, I should say survivor now, that was in Las Vegas. She was the girl next door, going to school, doing well in school, and she, of course, fell in love with this guy. He was her trafficker, and he would traffic her from state to state, and she would literally go to the grocery store while she was being trafficked, and nobody noticed her. So she could look like the girl next door, but you know what? You'll see the countenance change. You'll see a lot of maybe bruises on them. They won't, have eye contact with you. So be cognizant when you're going out to see if you see anything like that. Volunteer or support your local organizations. This organization is a great place to start. Become a mentor for one of our survivors. In order to do that, you actually have to go through a full background check, and you have to go through 40 hours of online training. These girls need mentors. Businesses to provide jobs and internship, skill training for survivors. Write your legislators, especially for pornography. We just actually, Barb and I did a training yesterday, and there is a link between pornography and human trafficking. And these kids, they were saying they were 2 clicks away from getting to pornography on the phones or their tablets or their computers. And then share what you learned tonight with your family and your friends. I would like to close out my time and then invite Mark to come up and finish the presentation. It's a quote from Theodore Roosevelt. It's called Daring Greatly. It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out the strong man stumbles, or where the doer of good deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who is actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust, sweat, and blood, who strives valiantly and errs, who comes short again and again, because there is no effort without error or shortcoming. but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at best, in the end, the triumph of high achievement, and who at worst, if he fails, at least fails daring greatly. So that his place shall never be with those with cold and timid souls, who never know victory nor defeat. I implore you, do something for this community and for these children. Speak up, share what you know, and don't be afraid. God's got your back. Now I'd like to invite Barb to come up and share. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna. You know, I get to hear her speak fairly often, and it is always, no matter how many times I've heard her, it's always awe-inspiring to just hear her passion and her vision about what she's created with Path2Freedom and just human trafficking in general. I really feel that there is an anointing on her, and there's an anointing on our organization from God. And I am so proud to be a part of the organization and working there. I've worked a lot of different jobs. You heard my semi-career path that I've had in the past. And if there's any job I love telling people about what I do when I talk about what I do at Path2Freedom, so I really feel privileged to work here. So I'm going to, so you heard obviously in the beginning a little bit about some statistics and some other things that Anna had brought up about human trafficking. So I'm going to give you a little deeper dive just about that issue in general. So first of all, so how does it happen? And particularly with children. So we've hopefully, or maybe not hopefully, but you've probably seen the movie Taken. And of course it's a sensationalized version of what people think in terms of, usually especially children, that they're kidnapped and they're forced into human trafficking. But actually, the most common thing is a close relationship. It is some kind of a trusted relationship where the child or person is being manipulated slowly into becoming a trafficked victim. And a statistic to give you specifically, this comes from the Polaris Project in 2020's report. Polaris Project is the organization that does the human trafficking hotline. And the number one way that children are initially brought into human trafficking, or who does that, 49%, they are brought into trafficking by a member of their own family. Very sad to say. So it's their own family that's doing this to them. Very close second to that, 39%, were recruited via an intimate partner or a marriage proposition, or aka your boyfriends. And these are, sometimes you hear about Romeos, and what's kind of written up here about Romeo tactics. And this is obviously starting out, making a lot of promises, giving a girl in a situation with a young girl, making her feel she's beautiful, making her feel that she is loved, that she's getting the attention that she is looking for. Maybe they're going to make her a model, take her to a hotel, leave her alone to have pictures taken of her that may not be what's really going to happen. So there's a whole luring, and I would call it the carrot versus the stick. And then it can turn into, in a relationship, the guerrilla tactics, which would be your sticks, which is when it becomes more forceful, it becomes, beatings can happen, there's retribution, there's threats and things like that in terms of the manipulation of the victim. What you're seeing on here is a screenshot of a movie, Maggie, and this is a movie that you can look up online. It's not terribly graphic, but it does have some bad language in it, just letting you know. It's about 20 minutes long. And this was created by someone in law enforcement that wanted to help produce it to give a counter view of the true reality of what they were actually seeing when they were encountering these types of crime activities with sex trafficking and how it really happens. So this is really countering what you may see in Hollywood and how they show it. So I'm not going to be showing a clip of this, but I did want to tell you, this is the point in the movie where the boyfriend actually turns the relationship around to her starting to become trafficked. So they are sitting in a car, they're sitting on the side of the road, and what he leans over and says to her, now they've been dating for a while, she's living with him, she's left whatever home life she had, and she's now with her boyfriend, she's doing drugs with him, he's gotten her on drugs. And he says, I want you to go to the black SUV SUV parked up on the corner. There's a man there with a lot of money. I need you to do whatever he tells you to do. Do you want to live on the street? Because that's our only option. I'm busting my ass every day for us. This is the least you can do. I wouldn't ask you to do this if it wasn't important. I already made a deal. Trust me, we do not want to piss these people off. Maggie, you know you're my girl. And that is a very typical story. You may hear the guilting that she's feeling. She ends up regrettably not wanting to, gets out of the car, goes up to the other car, and now she has started her first act, and now she has started in the act of sex trafficking. Next slide. You know, so who are targeted and who is the vulnerable out there? So first of all, human trafficking does not discriminate. It can happen to any age, any background, any sex, any country, any demographic, poor, rich, it's all over the place. Now we're specifically talking a little more about minors and around children, and very sadly, about 70 to 80% of the children that are trafficked in the United States come through the foster care system. Now, when we say that, it does not mean that foster parents are bad. There are lots of wonderful, amazing foster parents that my heart goes out to them and what they do. It is a very, very difficult job, and but there can be bad foster parents, just like there are bad parents. But really what it means is the fact that when you think about a child that's brought into foster care, they're already traumatized. So they're already susceptible to traffickers, and that's why we say that. So it's typically children in foster care that actually are very weak when it comes to the lure that's out there from traffickers. So, and obviously it may be a self-confidence issue that they need to feel that they are loved. They may be lured into doing something they're not being allowed to do at home that they want to do. So there's many reasons why they may be more susceptible to a trafficker. The other thing is that if a child is saved or rescued from trafficking and they are a minor, they do automatically go into DCF, or the Department of Children and Family Services, or the foster care system. So they could be someone that is most recently rescued and just got put into the foster care system, or it could be someone while they were in there was trafficked. When they go in and they have been trafficked, they are identified as what we call a CSEC, and the initials are CSEC. It stands for Commercially Sexually Exploited Child, and that's who we serve at Path2Freedom. So as these children are identified, those are who we serve and who are referred to us. Next slide. A very sad statistic is the average lifespan once, typically a child, it could be an adult, but typically for children, once they enter the life of human trafficking is 7 years. So they're not, so on average, if they're not getting out before that time, they could die. And this sounds very dramatic, but it is a true statistic. And really when you think about the amount of physical and mental trauma that they are going through, and especially children, oftentimes, you know, the brutal physical punishments they may go through, the mind games. Obviously, if you're basically being raped on a constant basis, just what that does to you and the physical effects of that alone. Oftentimes, these people are starved. That is partly to make them look good so that they're thin, or it could be a punishment, and they're not allowed to eat for certain reasons. And in fact, I heard more about this, again, Anna and I saying that we attend different things to learn more and more about different issues within sex trafficking. And there was a man who gave his testimony, so again, it happens to boys. Unfortunately, there isn't a lot of statistics on boys because most boys, when I was saying that victims, they often don't identify themselves as victims. Boys, much more so than girls, will come forward about the problem. So in general, the statistics we do have, we really believe it's understated for all of children, but particularly for boys. So this man was telling his story that he had, when he was being trafficked, he had been beaten up for not doing something he was told to do. He ended up in the emergency room. And his idea was, okay, I'm gonna get alone with the nurses and tell them what's going on and that the trafficker did this to me. So he did that. They didn't believe him. He found out afterwards the trafficker had told the nursing staff that he was he was clumsy, prone to accidents, had mental issues, and was a liar and would tell stories. So when he finally confessed to the girl and tried to get help, they thought he was lying. So of course, and because the trafficker found out that he had done this, he of course gets beaten up again. He ends up back in the emergency room. He of course does not say anything. So luckily though, after things like this had happened to him, and in fact he talked about suicide, that's another reason a lot of these people don't live, is they may kill themselves, he ended up back in the emergency room again. This time a nurse recognized the symptoms and called the correct authorities to make sure that somebody came in and intervened in the situation. So there's a lot of different industries and different professions that actually have more of an opportunity to have an eye out for victims. And if you're in the medical field, that's a big one, because these people are oftentimes showing up in emergency rooms because of the horrible abuse that they're going through, and people aren't recognizing what it really is. Next slide. So you heard Anna had mentioned that human trafficking around the world, in terms of the size of the industry, is $150 billion annually. Now that was based on a study that was done back in 2014 by the ILO, a very reputable, very official study. So it is often repeated. You're going to see it if you look it up online in a lot of different organizations. You're going to hear about it in a lot of different venues about human trafficking, because that is an official number. However, that was 8 years ago. We have heard a lot of additional estimates that it's about up to $200 billion, because we know it is still a growingly rapid crime. And of course, the border issue is not helping. We also know that bringing in more refugees, a lot of them are sneaking in children for human trafficking. It's exacerbating the issue in our country. But I'm not going to go on that topic. So we can go to the next slide. So in the United States, it is happening in our own backyard. And as Anna had said, the majority still, even though we have this issue of the border, truly the majority of our victims are still U.S. citizens. And people born here. That is happening to girls, our girls. And if you had to look at the United States and think about, okay, what state is the worst one in the country, I would argue that it is Florida. And it is because of these two statistics, because we're the only state in the nation that has both of these. So we're the only state that's in the top 3 for both number of cases per year, as well as per capita, meaning based on our population. So California and Texas have more cases per year, but when you look at it based on their population, they're actually lower on the list than Florida is. Now there are some things going on in the government. And of course, in law enforcement, there's a lot of groups that are trying to help combat this growing crime. It started in October 2020, there's the Center for Countering Human Trafficking. This was under DHS, ICE, and the Homeland Security Investigation Organization. There was also, back in 2010, the Homeland Security Blue Campaign, again, that Anna had mentioned. And this is to create awareness every year in January, which is Human Trafficking Awareness Month. And also to help educate law enforcement around the country about spotting and handling cases of human trafficking. So next slide. And just to get a sense of what Florida really looks like, if you look against where all the trafficking incidents are across the nation, I think this is really just speaks its own words when you look at the picture. And this is what you're looking at are 22,326 human trafficking situations recorded through the Human Trafficking Hotline. And this is as of 2019. And you can go to the next slide. So there's a lot of work that our law enforcement around Florida have done. Again, Anna talked about the 2015 Operation Human Freedom that had happened. Some events that go on And some of the reasons why Florida is such a horrendous state for the crime of human trafficking is because we are a location for a lot of big sporting events. We are a location for a lot of conventions. People come to vacation here. We have a lot of high net worth people that live here. If you think about Epstein and some of the folks in high power that believe that they are above the law and can do what they want. And unfortunately, that group mentality and feeling like you're away somewhere and kind of that, what happens in Las Vegas stays in Las Vegas. There's people are just being more tempted to do some of these nefarious acts that they may or may not do back home. So this particular incident happened, this is Polk County, that did March Sadness just recently, obviously around March Madness. There was 108 arrested. It included 4 Disney employees, 1 female trafficker. Yes, females are traffickers too. Unfortunately, there's a lot of women that are doing this, sad to say. There was 1 retired judge from Illinois, 4 children predators, and then several victims that they believe are victims of sex trafficking that they're still investigating that they rescued. And then right here, you may have heard just last week here in Collier County that there was a city deputy that was sentenced to 25 years for possessing child porn, tons of it, ages 3 to 10 years old that he had in his possession on his personal laptop. And I do want to commend the Collier County law enforcement for what they do, and specifically the fact that they are willing, like nobody is above the law, that they're willing to do this to one of their own because of what he did. Another one, next slide, another one that happened was Operation Takedown. This was back in April of 2021, and this is Hillsborough County. This one was around WrestleMania in Tampa. There were 79 men arrested. It included a local pastor, a girls basketball coach. Among those arrested, there was a known trafficker from Houston, Texas, who brought a 17-year-old girl to Tampa specifically for sex trafficking around WrestleMania. And just listing some of the examples of the people that were arrested, you're seeing that the perpetrators are just, they come from all over. It, not only the victims, it runs every type of demographic, but the same as the criminals. And moving to the next slide. So when you think about the industries that I would call the ones that are frontline versus maybe third party, first of all, massage parlors, as you had stated, massage parlors, frontline, things that I am saying are, quote, legitimate businesses disguised or these are sex trafficking organizations disguised as legitimate businesses. Not saying that they're all illegitimate, of course there are lots of legitimate ones as well. So escort services is at the top, then there's massage parlors, strip joints, and pornography. But then when you move into a third-party type of industry, hotels and motels is an example. So oftentimes the traffickers, obviously, where are the actual sex acts occurring? Oftentimes they are happening in hotels and motels, for example. And this was a lawsuit that came out in 2020. This was done by Attorney Freeman that was alleging that 22 area hotels did nothing to stop blatant sex trafficking activity in 2015-2016 in Collier County. Another industry you might hear about is truckers and things that are happening at truck stops. Now that law enforcement is also going after. There's an organization called TAT, Truckers Against Trafficking, that luckily they are teaching amongst themselves how to keep a lookout for seeing signs of trafficking that's occurring at their truck stops and saying something. And even within the hotel industry, there are a lot of businesses that have decided that they want to teach their own employees and to do something about this. So, many are complicit, but there are some that are waking up to the fact that this is happening right under their noses and they're just turning a blind eye to it, and they really need to be stepping up and saying something. So when I was saying something about the medical industry, like hotel industry is another big one where they could be seeing things that they're not reporting. And lastly, pornography. So, and again, Anna had mentioned yesterday that we were, it was quite disturbing. We learned a lot from it, however. So this was a symposium that was done at the Capitol in the United States. And we were online virtually along with our program director, Fawn Volkert. This is the toxic online criminality. And really what we were learning, that pornography is a gateway to all of these things. So obviously it can start out with abuse, it can lead to soliciting prostitution, it can lead to rape, and ultimately it can lead to either consumer of sex trafficking or even getting into the trade themselves. I would say anyone that thinks, and I'm sure, you know, at some point some people think, what's wrong with pornography? I'm just looking at something, I'm not hurting anybody. But usually you don't realize what you're looking at. Often, what you are looking at is somebody that has either been forced into whatever it is you're watching. They may be trafficked, they may be being raped, it could be something consensual, but the person did not know it was being taped. And therefore, it is not been consented to be put out online, but someone did that to them. And now their personal experience, and now it's all over the internet. And it's very, very hard to get rid of. I don't know if you've heard of this case with Pornhub. Pornhub is a sub-brand of MindGeek. MindGeek is the world's largest pornographic company worldwide, and they have many brands underneath them. There were several women. This case started about a year ago. About half of the women were minors, many of them sex trafficking victims that are part of this lawsuit. And it was, the main point of this lawsuit is about that this is non-consensual material that was being distributed and not taken down. And so there's many different varieties of that. And then lastly, so off of that fun note, and I know Anna also, I thought this slide was, we both were talking about the same slide when she was talking about Happy Hill. So some of the things I'm just going to mention on this is that number you're seeing, that is the human trafficking hotline. Something I want to talk about specifically are these two acts that are on here. And the EARN IT Act is related to the pornography that I was talking about. So this is these are two bills right now that are out there with Congress that we love your support in helping to get our local state senators to support. I do know Byron Donalds does support the EARN IT Act. We are still trying to get our two senators to do this. Both of these have been introduced both in the House as well as the Senate. Now the EARN IT Act, what that would do is hold big tech responsible for taking all child pornography permanently off the internet. Just to give you a sense of how big the problem is, so when I was hearing about it, apparently there's an agency, a federal agency that does investigations of the people that are creating this pornography, this child pornography, and going after them. They're so overloaded that they have to prioritize their work to infants and toddlers. And when you say something like, just think about that. I just want to know, who wants to even look at that? Why do we have that out there and there's people consuming it? So then there's the people who want to look at it. Then there's the people that are doing that, doing whatever disgusting things to these children. And then we can't even get it off the internet because, of course, somebody will say something about it, it's wrong, it's illegal, it's supposedly taken down, it shows up somewhere else. And that's what the issue is. So there's some AI technology out there that these big tech can use. However, it's all about money. And of course, it's finding a legal way to force them to have to permanently delete it. And also it's big money for the people that are passing around all this pornography. And then the Human Trafficking, Exploitation, and Prevention Training Act. This is about nationwide, actually making sure that we are training our schools and our children, K through 12, parents as well as staff, about the issue of human trafficking and making them, children, aware of what the signs could be and looking out for that and keeping them safe and telling their peers, and also the parents understanding it, and obviously the people that work in the schools, because that, again, is another place where a lot of trafficking recruiting is happening. Luckily, I am proud to say in the state of Florida, back in the end of 2019, DeSantis's administration did put a law into place around requiring this for K through 12 in the state of Florida. However, then COVID hit, and of course, just trying to figure out how to do schooling virtually for a year and a half was very difficult, and all the changes that went on in schools, so adding a new curriculum, it really kind of died for a while. It is now starting to ramp up, it's starting to get out there, so I would say if your parents, if you know people are hearing about this coming out in their schools, to be supportive of it. They are making sure that it is age appropriate, again, obviously for kindergartners up to seniors in high school. And again, this is another bill being put before Congress, and we would love to have more support from our Florida congressman. And of course, donating and volunteering, we could of course use your support at Path2Freedom. We do have on our website, if you would like to volunteer for us, we do list periodically what it is that we need for volunteers, so you can always keep a lookout for that. And with that, I am finished. So thank you so much for